Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump just completely exposed Europe's legendary free healthcare system, and also, he's putting them back in their place. Now, as you all know, dealing with the European Union is an absolute bureaucratic nightmare. They've got egregiously overregulated markets with an absolutely unparalleled level of negotiating rigidity. We also know that the bureaucrats leading the European Union have a sense of entitlement, which makes them almost impossible to work with. Their negotiation expectations are just completely out of touch with reality, and they expect the United States to keep on accepting the short end of the stick. And so, folks, before we get to the breaking news of the day, we need to do a little bit of a rewind to an executive order that President Trump signed just around 3 weeks ago. You see, in early May, President Trump signed an executive order that effectively forces the pharmaceutical industry to offer medicine to Americans at the same lower rates that they offer to other people around the world, specifically in Europe. And so what that means is that now, going forward, the pharmaceutical companies either have to increase their prices in Europe to try to maintain their profit, or just accept that now, going forward, they're going to have to start making less money and drop the costs here in America down to what they currently are over in Europe. As many of you know, Americans have long been overcharged for basic medications, sometimes at a rate that's 3 or 4 times higher than the rates of our counterparts over in Europe. Same companies, same medicine, but 4 times more expensive. And so on that note, I think you should all take a look at this video, but first, I do want to say real quick that if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, take a look.
This is the most powerful executive order on pharmacy pricing and healthcare ever in the history of our nation. And it's only happening because we have a president with the fortitude, the guts to stand up to the withering criticism and lobbying that's going to occur as soon as folks hear about the executive order. So on behalf of the child in Philadelphia who's got an autoimmune disease with a $1,000 a month drug, or the older woman in Los Angeles who's on a blood thinner who can't afford her copay, I want to thank President Trump. God bless you for having the guts to take on this industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk about the details a little bit. And this is primarily about equalization, as President Trump said. It's about fairness. Think of NATO as a metaphor. When President Trump said, you've got to pay a little more, so it makes sense for all of us, they came up, and the European countries contributed. The same thing we believe will happen in this situation. Most people who have thought about this process agree that it is patently unfair to tolerate the numbers that Secretary Kennedy and President Trump have reflected to you. On this chart to my left is a list of the 10 drugs that were negotiated in the IRA. Again, this is the bill, the law, that regulates a negotiation process. This is the best price that was able to be obtained by the Biden administration. And if you look at these numbers, they actually reflect how much on top of the most favored nation price was being paid by the United States. So the closest to me, Bob, you can point to the Jardiance, the closest one, 289%, the one that's closest to you. That means that we are paying in America 4 times more than that drug costs in other countries. Again, 100% is the baseline. It's 289% above that baseline. It goes all the way down to when we're paying 50% more than any other country. That's the range. As was pointed out by President Trump, half the time we're paying 3 times more than is paid in other countries. It doesn't make any sense for the system. That stated, President Trump has over and over again indicated, and Secretary Kennedy reflected as well, we want innovation. We want our technology partners doing the best they can to make the best solutions for drugs to cure as many people in America and around the world as possible. By getting our allies to pay a bit more, as they should be, and they should have for many years been doing, will course correct a problem that's gotten out of hand. And by doing that in a thoughtful, effective way, we're going to be able to get the pharmaceutical industry whole. Those jobs will still be here, will still be productive, will still be curing cancer and a slew of other ailments that plague humanity. America will still be the leader in this space, but we'll be paying the appropriate amount, the right-sized amount for those tasks.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, here's the truth. The United States alone produces 70% of the pharmaceutical industry's revenue, despite only having 4% of the world's total population. And that's not only because we're all abnormally sick or something. Folks, we've been getting ripped off. And so this is why just the other day, President Trump himself had this to say. Take a look. American patients have been effectively subsidizing socialist healthcare systems in Germany in all parts of the European Union. They were nasty, and I see that. The European Union is, in many ways, nastier than China, and we've just started with them. They'll come down a lot, you watch. We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly. President Trump also recently said this, directly putting Europe on blast. We are going to tell those countries, like those represented by the European Union, that the game is up, sorry, and if they want to get cute, then they don't have to sell cars in the United States anymore. Folks, that is classic President Trump, but okay, here's the truth. Every single country in Europe has benefited from pharmaceutical innovation going on here in the United States. Meanwhile, they've gotten away with paying just a fraction of the cost that we all pay here in America. Honestly, if anything, they should be paying more than us, because it's the money from American taxpayers that are helping to subsidize the development of all of these life-saving drugs over here in America. But okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what all of this really means. Not only has President Trump completely exposed the European Union's predatory pricing, but also he's exposed the pharmaceutical industry's complicity in overcharging Americans for basic medications. And keep in mind, these are the very same pharmaceutical companies that were actively lobbying the Biden administration to force COVID-19 vaccine mandates so that they could make hundreds of billions of dollars, which is exactly what they did. And so here's what the left-wing mainstream media doesn't want you to know. President Trump's executive order is expected to reduce drug prices in the United States by anywhere from 30 to 80%, which delivers massive savings to American taxpayers. In contrast, with pretty much every single previous presidential administration we've had, they were just totally willing to let American taxpayers get taken advantage of by foreign nations, and as you all know, in more ways than one. And as we all previously heard from President Trump's statement, the European Union's refusal to chip in their fair share regarding drug prices means that now they're risking some pretty serious consequences, like restricted access to the US automotive market. So really, what President Trump's executive order does is ensure that Americans are no longer taken advantage of and being forced to directly subsidize the healthcare costs of hundreds of millions of people over in Europe, but also the quarterly profits of the pharmaceutical companies. And so, folks, I don't know about you, but in my opinion, that is what it looks like to put America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I do want to say real quick that we officially have a Morse News Twitter page as well as a Morse News Facebook page. So if you use either of those platforms, please go down below and drop a follow in order to get breaking news updates that relate to everything we talk about here in the YouTube videos. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there, and like I said earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.